Silver Oak Promise begins when Savannah Lane loses her family farm and takes a leap of faith, accepting a job with billionaire rancher Cole Maddox. She's ready for a second chance, but is he ready to risk everything for love? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun beat down on Savannah Lane's weathered pickup truck as she drove down the winding dirt road that led away from her family's dairy farm for the last time. At 35, the lines around her eyes told stories of early mornings, late nights, and everything in between. Her calloused hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white with tension. "This isn't giving up," she told herself, glancing in the rearview mirror at the faded farmhouse growing smaller behind her. This is moving forward. After her mother's long illness and the brutal winter that followed, the bank had finally foreclosed on the dairy farm that had been in her family for 3 generations. Savannah had fought tooth and nail to save it, working extra jobs and cutting every possible expense. But in the end, the numbers simply didn't add up. Now, with just a suitcase of clothes, her mother's Bible, and enough money for a bus ticket, Savannah was headed across the state for a job interview that seemed too good to be true. Silver Oak Ranch, a massive agricultural operation owned by Cole Maddox, the man business magazines called the billion-dollar farmer. The position was for an assistant manager, and while Savannah knew everything there was to know about running a small dairy farm, she worried her lack of formal education might be a problem. But the ad had specifically mentioned hands-on experience over fancy degrees, which gave her a glimmer of hope. 3 hours later, Savannah stepped off the bus in Cedar Ridge, a town 10 times the size of her hometown. She smoothed down her best flannel shirt, tucked into her only pair of dress pants, and headed toward the address listed in the email. The Silver Oak Ranch main office wasn't what she expected. Instead of a farmhouse or barn, it was a modern glass building that looked like it belonged in a big city. Savannah hesitated at the entrance, suddenly aware of her worn boots and the calluses on her hands. "You must be Miss Lane," said a sleek woman in a tailored suit, approaching with clipboard in hand. "I'm Diane, Mr. Maddox's executive assistant." "You're right on time," Savannah nodded, trying not to stare at the woman's perfect makeup and manicured nails. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. Follow me." Mr. Maddox is waiting in the conference room. As they walked through the building, Savannah felt increasingly out of place. Every person they passed wore business attire and carried tablets or laptops. No one had dirt under their fingernails or sun-weathered skin. The conference room door opened to reveal a long table with Cole Maddox sitting at the far end, his attention focused on the papers in front of him. At 42, he was handsome in a stern way, with salt and pepper hair cropped short and a jawline that could cut glass. His crisp white shirt and navy tie made Savannah even more conscious of her simple clothes. "Sir, Savannah Lane is here for the assistant manager interview," Diane announced. Cole looked up, his steel blue eyes assessing Savannah in one quick glance. "Thank you, Diane, that will be all." After Diane left, Cole gestured to the chair across from him. "Please sit down." Savannah took a seat, trying to hide her nervousness. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Maddox. Your resume says you've been running a dairy farm since you were 20, he said, getting straight to business. "No college degree, no corporate experience. Why should I hire you to help manage a 5,000-acre operation?" Savannah took a deep breath. "Because I know farming isn't something you learn from books. It's in your bones. I've birthed calves in blizzards, fixed equipment with whatever parts I had on hand, and managed to keep a small farm running through drought and flood. I don't know fancy business terms, but I know the land, and I'm a quick learner." Cole raised an eyebrow, a flicker of interest crossing his face. "And why did you leave your farm?" "I didn't leave it. It left me," she answered honestly. "Bank. Took it after my mother's medical bills piled up. Cancer," she added quietly. "But that's life. You get knocked down, you get back up." Cole studied her for a long moment. There was something different about this woman. She wasn't trying to impress him with big words or flatter him with compliments. She was real. "The job requires computer skills," he said. "Spreadsheets, inventory systems." Savannah nodded. "I figured I'm not the best with computers, but I managed all our farm records. I can learn whatever system you use." "And you'd be reporting directly To me, I'm told I can be demanding. At this, Savannah couldn't help but smile. Mr. Maddox, I've dealt with ornery bulls and stubborn mules my whole life. I reckon one tough boss isn't going to scare me off. For the first time, Cole's expression softened slightly. You're not what I expected, Miss Lane. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure yet, he admitted. But I'm willing to find out. The job is yours if you want it. Savannah blinked in surprise. Just like that? Don't you need to interview other people? I've interviewed 12 Harvard graduates and business school alumni. None of them knew the difference between winter wheat and spring wheat. He stood up and extended his hand. We start tomorrow, 6 a.m. Diane will show you to the staff housing. Savannah shook his hand, noting his firm grip and the unexpected calluses on his palm. Maybe he wasn't just a suit after all. Thank you. I won't let you down. As promised, Savannah arrived at the main office the next morning before sunrise. To her surprise, Cole was already there, wearing jeans and a work shirt instead of yesterday's business attire. Good morning, he said, handing her a tablet. This is your first test. I need a full inventory of the equipment in the Eastfield barn by noon. Savannah took the tablet awkwardly, looking at the unfamiliar screen. I'll figure it out, she promised. I know you will, he replied, turning to leave. Oh, and there's coffee in the break room. You look like you could use some. The first week was harder than anything Savannah had ever experienced. The tablet proved challenging, the scale of operations overwhelming, and the staff's sideways glances made it clear they thought she didn't belong. But every morning she got up before dawn, put on her work clothes and gave it her all. By Friday she had mastered the inventory system, learned everyone's names, and even fixed the irrigation pump when the maintenance crew was backed up with other repairs. Cole found her that evening, hands covered in grease, putting the finishing touches on the pump. You didn't have to do that, he said, watching as she tightened the last bolt. Needed doing, she replied simply. Besides, those tomato plants can't wait till Monday for water. Cole crossed his arms, studying her with newfound appreciation. Most people here are afraid to get their hands dirty. Well, I'm not most people. Savannah wiped her hands on a rag and stood up. And neither are you, from what I can tell. What do you mean? Those calluses on your hands tell me you don't just sit in that fancy office all day. And you know your way around the fields better than someone who just looks at maps. A ghost of a smile crossed Cole's face. My father believed you can't manage. What you don't understand, I started working the fields when I was 12. Smart man, your father. He was many things, smart, driven, impossible to please. Cole's expression darkened momentarily before he changed the subject. How are you finding the staff housing? It's nicer than anywhere I've ever lived, Savannah admitted, though it feels strange not hearing the cows first thing in the morning. You miss them, the cows? I miss a lot of things, she said with a small shrug. But that's how life goes, you move on. Something in her straightforward acceptance seemed to touch Cole. Have you eaten dinner yet? No, I wanted to finish this first. There's a diner in town. Nothing fancy, but the food is good. I usually grab dinner there on Fridays. Was that an invitation? Savannah wasn't sure, but her growling stomach made the decision for her. Sounds good to me. Let me wash up first. 20 minutes later, they were sitting across from each other in a worn vinyl booth at Millie's Diner. Cole seemed different outside of work, less rigid, more human. So, Savannah said, stirring sugar into her iced tea, how does someone become a billion-dollar farmer? Anyway, that's what the magazines call you, right? Cole looked uncomfortable with the label. My great-grandfather started with 100 acres. Each generation expanded. My father turned it into a corporation. I just continued the family tradition. And do you like it? Running the whole operation? The question seemed to catch him off guard. Like it? I don't know if that's the point. It's my responsibility. Life's too short not to like what you do, Savannah said, thinking of her mother's advice over the years. Cole studied her with a curious expression. Has anyone ever told you that you have an unusual way of looking at things, Miss Lane? Savannah, she corrected. And yes, all the time. Their conversation was interrupted when a group of well-dressed men entered the diner, immediately spotting Cole. Maddox, didn't expect to see you mingling with the commoners, one of them called out, approaching their table. His gaze shifted, To Savannah, eyebrows raising slightly. "And who's this lovely lady?" "This is my new assistant manager, Miss Lane," Cole said formally. "Savannah, this is Richard Hartwell. He owns the banking group that finances most of the farms in this region." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes as he extended his hand to Savannah. Charmed, Cole rarely brings his employees to dinner. "You must be special." Savannah didn't miss the implication in his tone, but kept her expression neutral as she shook his hand. "Nice to meet you." "We were just discussing business," Cole said firmly. "If you'll excuse us." After Richard reluctantly walked away, Savannah noticed Cole's jaw was tight with tension. "Not a friend, I take it?" "Business associate," Cole corrected. "Sorry about that." "No need to apologize, I'm used to people making assumptions." Cole looked at her with something like admiration. "You don't let much bother you, do you?" "Life's too short," she repeated with a small smile. As they finished their meal and headed back to the ranch, Savannah realized she was seeing glimpses of the real Cole Maddox beyond the stern businessman, a man with calloused hands who ate at simple diners and tensed up around people like Richard Hartwell. Back at the staff housing complex, Cole walked her to her door. "Thank you for dinner," Savannah said, "and for the job. I promise I'll keep learning and improving." "I know you will." Cole hesitated, then added, "Get some rest this weekend. Monday we start planning the harvest schedule, and I'll need your insight on the dairy operation expansion." "Dairy expansion? That's why I hired you," he said with a genuine smile that transformed his face. "Who better to help set up a model dairy farm than someone who's run one their whole life?" As he walked away, Savannah felt a strange flutter in her chest. This job might be exactly what she needed, not just to pay the bills, but to heal the wound of losing her family farm. Little did she know that working closely with Cole Maddox would change her life in ways she never could have imagined. The weeks flew by as Savannah settled into her role at Silver Oak Ranch. Each day brought new challenges, but she tackled them head-on with the same determination that had kept her family farm running for years. Her simple, straightforward approach to problems earned her the respect of the field workers, even as some of the office staff remained skeptical of the country girl who'd seemingly appeared from nowhere. Cole was a puzzle Savannah couldn't quite figure out. Some days he was all business, barking orders, demanding reports, and scrutinizing every detail of the operation. Other days, she'd catch glimpses of someone else entirely, a man who walked the fields at dawn, who knew every worker's name, who kept a worn photo of a woman, his mother, she guessed, on his otherwise spotless desk. One morning, Savannah arrived at the office to find Cole staring out the window, coffee cup forgotten in his hand. "Everything okay?" she asked, setting down the stack of inventory reports he'd requested. Cole turned, his expression guarded. "Fine, just thinking about the North Field rotation." Savannah knew that wasn't true. The North Fields had been settled weeks ago, but she didn't push. "I finished those reports you wanted, and I made some notes about the dairy facility design, so I think the layout could be more efficient." Cole took the folder, his fingers brushing against hers for a brief moment. "Thank you, I'll look these over. Is there anything else you need today?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, that's all." As she turned to leave, he suddenly spoke again. "Actually, Savannah, there is something. Do you ride horses?" "Since before I could walk." "Why?" "I need to check the far pastures today. Thought you might want to come along. Get a better feel for the full operation." An hour later, they were riding side by side on a ridge overlooking Silver Oak's vast expanse. The morning sun painted the fields gold, and the air was crisp with the promise of autumn. "It's beautiful," Savannah said, taking in the view. "Your family built something special here." Cole nodded, a mix of pride and something heavier in his expression. 4 generations of Maddoxes pouring everything into this land. "You don't say that like it's all good." He glanced at her, surprised by her perception. "It's complicated. My father, he saw the land as something to conquer, to profit from. My mother saw it differently. She loved this place for what it was, not what it could give us." "And what about you? Which side do you take?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. "I used to know. Now, I'm not so sure anymore." They rode in comfortable silence until they reached A small secluded garden filled with roses of every color. A stone bench sat in the center, partially hidden by the blooms. "What's this place?" Savannah asked, dismounting. "My mother's rose garden," Cole said softly, joining her on the ground. "She started it when I was a boy. After she died, I kept that going." Savannah moved carefully through the garden, admiring the flowers. "These are beautiful. My mom grew roses too, but nothing this fancy. Just wild ones along our fence. Sometimes I come here when the corporate side of things gets too heavy," Cole admitted. "Reminds me there's more to life than quarterly reports." Savannah smiled. "You ever stop and breathe, city cowboy?" The unexpected nickname made Cole laugh, a real laugh that transformed his face. "Not nearly enough, apparently." "Well, you should. These roses didn't grow because somebody demanded it in a meeting. They grew because someone loved them." She gently touched a deep red bloom. "My mom always said flowers were God's way of reminding us to find beauty in the everyday." Something in Cole's expression softened. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." She was. Savannah swallowed the lump in her throat. "Cancer took her last winter. That's when things really started falling apart at our farm." "I'm sorry," Cole said, his voice sincere. "I lost my mother when I was in college. Heart failure, it changes you." "Yes, it does." Savannah met his eyes, seeing her own grief reflected there. The moment was interrupted by the ringing of Cole's phone. His expression immediately shifted back to business as he answered it. "Maddox here." He listened for a moment, his face darkening. "I'll be right there." He turned to Savannah. "Emergency at the processing plant. We need to head back." The shared moment was over, but something had changed between them. As they rode back, Savannah couldn't help wondering what other sides of Cole Maddox remained hidden beneath his cool exterior. At the processing plant, they found chaos. A critical piece of equipment had failed during the morning run, threatening thousands of dollars in product. "We can't wait for the service team," the plant manager explained frantically. "They're 4 hours away." Cole ran a hand through his hair, assessing the situation. "What about our maintenance crew?" "They've never worked on this model. It's too new." Savannah stepped forward, studying the machine. "What's it supposed to do exactly?" The plant manager looked at her dismissively. "It's a specialized separator, Miss Lane. Very complicated. Looks similar to the one we had back home, just bigger. And fancier," she said, undeterred. "Mind if I take a look?" Cole nodded. "Let her try." Kneeling beside the machine, Savannah methodically examined each component, her hands moving with practiced ease. 20 minutes later, she looked up with a satisfied smile. "Found it. The intake valve's misaligned. Simple fix, but you need small hands to reach it." She stood up, wiping grease on her jeans. "Should work fine now." Sure enough, when they restarted, the equipment it hummed back to life. The plant manager stared at her in disbelief. "How did you grew up fixing things?" Savannah said with a shrug. "When you can't afford to call someone, you learn to do it yourself." Later that evening, Cole found Savannah in the office, finishing up the day's reports. "That was impressive today," he said, leaning against her desk. "You saved us a lot of money and headaches." "Just doing my job." "Above and beyond your job description," he corrected. "I've been thinking about expanding your role, making you operations manager for the dairy division once it's up and running." Savannah looked up in surprise. "That's a big step up." "You've earned it." He hesitated, then added, "There's a company dinner tomorrow night, board members, investors, that sort of thing. I'd like you to be there." "Me? I don't exactly fit in with that crowd." "That's exactly why I want you there. You see things differently." The corner of his mouth lifted in a half smile. "Besides, you'll keep me from dying of boredom." The next evening, Savannah stood in front of the small mirror in her staff housing unit, hardly recognizing herself. She'd made a quick trip to the town's only department store and found a simple blue dress that was nicer than anything she'd owned before. It wasn't fancy, but it was the best she could do on short notice. A knock at her door startled her. She opened it to find Cole standing there in a tailored suit, looking more handsome than any man had a right to. "You didn't have to pick me up," she said, suddenly self-conscious. His eyes took in her appearance, lingering a moment longer than necessary. "You look nice." "Thanks," she replied, smoothing down the unfamiliar fabric. I'm not used to dressing up. It suits you, he said simply. Ready? The dinner was held at an upscale restaurant in the city, an hour's drive from the ranch. As they entered together, Savannah felt the curious stares of the other guests, men in expensive suits and women dripping in jewelry. Cole, darling. A striking blonde woman in a designer dress approached, air-kissing Cole's cheek. We've missed you at the last 2 charity galas. Been busy, Victoria, Cole said politely. This is Savannah Lane, my operations manager for our new dairy division. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. How rustic. I didn't realize dairy was the new focus. It's an exciting expansion, Cole replied, his tone warning against further comment. Throughout the evening, Savannah endured similar interactions, thinly veiled surprise or condescension from Cole's social circle. She handled it with grace, but by the dessert course, she was exhausted from the effort. You holding up okay? Cole asked quietly as they waited for coffee. I'm fine, but I think I'm allergic to small talk about yacht clubs and summer homes. Cole chuckled. Makes 2 of us. As they prepared to leave, Richard Hartwell, the banker from the diner, approached their table. Cole, a word before you go. About that loan for the Eastern expansion? Can it wait until Monday? Cole asked. Just need a quick signature on the preliminary papers. Won't take but a minute. Cole sighed. Fine. He turned to Savannah. I'll meet you outside. She nodded and made her way to the restaurant's garden terrace, grateful for the quiet after hours. Hove chatter. The night air was cool and stars dotted the clear sky. Not your scene, is it? Savannah turned to find a slim, dark-haired woman watching her with a knowing smile. That obvious, huh? Only to someone else who doesn't fit in. The woman replied, extending her hand. I'm Rebecca Maddox, Cole's sister. Savannah blinked in surprise. I didn't know Cole had a sister. Not surprising. We don't exactly advertise our relationship these days. Rebecca's expression held a mix of sadness and resignation. We had a falling out after our father died. Cole took over the business and, I wanted no part of it. He's never mentioned you. Like I said, not surprising. Rebecca studied Savannah curiously. So, how did you end up working for my brother? You're not his usual type of employee. I needed a job. He needed someone who knows cows. Rebecca laughed, a sound so similar to Cole's that Savannah couldn't help but smile. Refreshingly direct. I can see why he hired you. She glanced back toward the restaurant. Be careful, though. About what? My brother doesn't let many people get close. Those who do tend to get hurt. Before Savannah could respond, Cole appeared in the doorway, his expression darkening when he spotted Rebecca. Becca, he said stiffly, I didn't know you were here. Just stopped by to say hello to some friends, Rebecca replied, equally tense. I was just introducing myself to Savannah. We should go, Cole said, avoiding his sister's gaze. It's getting late. The drive back to the ranch was silent, Cole's knuckles white on the steering wheel. She seems nice, Savannah finally said. Your sister. We don't talk much. She mentioned that. Something about a disagreement after your father died. Cole's jaw tightened. It's complicated. Families usually are. Savannah looked out the window at the passing darkness. I haven't spoken to my brother in 3 years. He chose drugs over getting help. Sometimes I wonder if I gave up on him too easily. Cole glanced at her, something like understanding in his eyes. You can't save someone who doesn't want saving. Maybe, but sometimes I think people want saving, they just don't know how to ask. The rest of the drive passed in contemplative silence. When they reached Savannah's door, Cole hesitated. I'm sorry about tonight. Those people, they're not what I consider friends, just business connections. Then why do you spend time with them? It's expected. Part of running Silver Oak. Savannah studied him in the dim porch light. You know, for someone who owns 5,000 acres, you don't seem very free. The observation hit closer to home than Cole was comfortable with. Good night, Savannah. Good night, boss, she replied softly. As the weeks passed, Savannah threw herself into the dairy division plans. The project was her chance to bring a piece of her old life into her new one, and she worked tirelessly to make it perfect. Cole, meanwhile, found himself seeking out her company more often than necessary, asking for her input on decisions that weren't in her department, bringing her coffee when he made his morning rounds, suggesting they eat lunch together to discuss business. One evening, as they reviewed the final dairy facility plans in his office, a thunderstorm rolled in, rattling the windows with its force. "That's going to wash out the West Road," Savannah said, looking up from the blueprints. "How do you know?" "The drainage there is poor. I mentioned it in my report last month." She gave him a knowing look, which you clearly didn't read. Cole had the grace to look embarrassed. "I've been distracted lately, I noticed." Savannah gathered her papers. "I should head back before it gets worse." "Wait," Cole said, standing up quickly. "It's not safe to drive in this. The staff housing is on the other side of the creek and it could flood. So what do you suggest?" "Stay here. I have a guest room at my house. It's just up the hill." Savannah hesitated, aware of how it might look. "I don't know." "It's just a practical solution," Cole said, though something in his eyes suggested it might be more than that. 30 minutes later, Savannah stood in the entryway of Cole's home, trying not to gape. The house was beautiful, a modern structure of glass and wood perched on a hill overlooking the ranch. But unlike the sleek impersonality she expected, it was surprisingly warm, with comfortable furniture and shelves lined with books. "Make yourself at home," Cole said, handing her a towel for her rain-dampened hair. "I'll make us some tea." Savannah wandered into the living room, drawn to the large stone fireplace. Above it hung a portrait of a beautiful woman with Cole's eyes and Rebecca's smile. "Your mother?" she asked when Cole returned with 2 steaming mugs. "Yes." He handed her a cup and stood beside her, gazing up at the painting. "Elizabeth Maddox, smartest person I've ever known. She wanted to be a botanist, but she gave it up to help my father run Silver Oak." Was she happy with that choice? Cole considered the question. "I don't know. She never complained, but sometimes I'd find her in her rose garden just sitting, there with this look on her face, like she was wondering what might have been." The honesty of his answer touched Savannah. "Thank you for letting me stay here tonight." "Okay, it's nothing," he said, though they both knew it wasn't nothing at all. As the storm raged outside, they sat by the fire talking about the ranch, their childhoods, their dreams and disappointments. Without the boundaries of the office, Cole was different, softer, more open. Savannah found herself drawn to this version of him, the man behind the businessman. "What would you have done?" Cole asked suddenly. "If your farm hadn't failed, would you have stayed there forever?" Savannah considered the question. "I loved that farm, it was home, but sometimes I wondered if there was more out there for me." She met his gaze across the flickering firelight. "I guess I'm finding out now." Something shifted in the air between them, a tension that had been building for weeks now impossible to ignore. Cole set down his mug and moved closer to her on the couch. "Savannah, The ring of his phone cut through the moment. Cole cursed under his breath as he checked the screen. "I have to take this. It's the Tokyo investor." As he stepped away to take the call, Savannah let out a shaky breath. What was happening between them? He was her boss from a completely different world, and yet sitting here in his home, she couldn't deny the connection she felt to him. When Cole returned, the spell was broken. His business facade was back in place. "Sorry about that. I should show you to the guest room. It's getting late." Savannah nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. Of course. As she followed him upstairs, she reminded herself of the reality of their situation. Cole Maddox was one of the richest men in the state, and she was a farm girl with nothing to her name but determination and grit. Whatever she thought she saw in his eyes tonight was probably just a trick of the firelight. Little did she know, as Cole lay awake in his room down the hall, he was wrestling with the same thoughts and coming to very different conclusions. The morning after the storm, Savannah woke in the unfamiliar comfort of Cole's guest room. Sunlight streamed through large windows, revealing a breathtaking view of Silver Oak Ranch spread out below. For a moment she lay still, thinking about the night before, the warmth in Cole's eyes, the almost moment by the fire, the way her heart had raced when he sat close to her. "This is crazy," she muttered, forcing herself out of bed. He's your boss, Savannah, nothing more. Downstairs, she found a note on the kitchen counter. Had to handle storm damage assessment. Help yourself to breakfast. C, relieved to have some time to collect her thoughts, Savannah made a quick cup of coffee and headed back to her own quarters. She had work to focus on. The dairy division wouldn't build itself. Over the next few days, both she and Cole maintained a careful distance. Their conversations stuck strictly to business, even as their eyes sometimes said something else entirely. The staff began to notice the tension between them, and whispers spread through the ranch. The boss sure spends a lot of time checking on the dairy project, one of the field managers commented with a knowing look. Can you blame him? She's different from the city women he usually dates, another replied. Savannah ignored the gossip, throwing herself into work. The dairy facility was taking shape, and despite the awkwardness with Cole, she felt proud of what they were creating. Together, it would be a model operation, combining traditional farming practices with modern efficiency. One morning, Diane appeared at Savannah's office door. Mr. Maddox would like to see you in the main conference room. Savannah nodded, gathering her project files. Is this about the equipment order? No, Diane said, her expression unreadable. The board members are here. Savannah's stomach tightened. The board had been skeptical about the dairy expansion from the beginning, seeing it as a nostalgic indulgence rather than a sound business decision. In the conference room, Cole stood at the head of the table, surrounded by men and women in expensive suits. Their conversation halted when Savannah entered. There she is, Cole said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Savannah, I'd like you to meet our board of directors. I've asked them here to see the dairy project firsthand. A silver-haired man at the far end of the table looked Savannah up and down. So you're the dairy expert Maddox has been telling us about. I wouldn't call myself an expert, Savannah replied honestly. Just someone who knows cows. Refreshing honesty, the man said with a thin smile. I'm Walter Kingsley, chairman of the board. Cole tells us this dairy division was your concept. It was a collaborative idea, she answered, glancing at Cole. The tour of the construction site went well enough, with Savannah explaining the design choices and projected returns. The board members asked tough questions, but she answered them directly, without the corporate jargon they might have expected. The initial investment is higher than a conventional operation, she explained, but the sustainable practices will reduce costs long-term and position us as an industry leader in ethical farming. When they returned to the conference room, Cole looked pleased. Thank you, Savannah. If you could leave your presentation files, we'll continue the discussion privately. She nodded, understanding she was being dismissed. As she walked out, she heard Walter Kingsley's voice. She's certainly passionate, Cole, but is this really the direction Silver Oak should be taking? Later that afternoon, Savannah was checking the feed delivery when Cole found her. How did it go? She asked, trying to read his expression. They approved the project, he said, a smile breaking across his face. Full funding, no cuts. That's wonderful. Savannah resisted the urge to hug him, settling for a professional nod instead. I knew they'd see the potential. They saw it because you showed it to them. Cole's eyes held hers for a long moment. Listen, there's something else. The board was so impressed they want to make you head of the entire division. Corner office, company car, substantial raise, the works. Savannah blinked in surprise. Me? But I've only been here a few months. You've proven yourself. This is a big step up, Savannah. You'd be part of the executive team. She should have been thrilled. This was more than she'd ever dreamed possible when she stepped off that bus with nothing but a suitcase and hope. Yet something about it felt wrong. I'd be spending all my time in meetings and conference calls, wouldn't I? Instead of actually working with the cows. Cole looked surprised by her hesitation. That's generally how executive positions work, yes. I don't know, Cole. I'm not sure that's what I want. Think about it, he said, touching her arm briefly. This is a great opportunity. That evening, Savannah sat on the small porch of her staff housing unit, watching the sunset over Silver Oak. The promotion offer weighed heavily on her mind. Yes, the money would be life-changing. She could help her brother get into rehab, maybe, even buy back a piece of her family's land someday. But she hadn't come to Silver Oak to become a corporate executive. She'd come because she loved farming, the soil, the animals, the rhythm of the seasons. Trading her boots for high heels and boardrooms felt like another kind of loss. A knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Cole standing there, looking unusually casual in jeans and a worn flannel shirt. "Got a minute?" he asked. She nodded, stepping aside to let him in. Her quarters were modest, a small living area, kitchenette and bedroom, but she'd made it homey with touches like her mother's quilt and family photos. Cole looked around, seeming to approve of the simple space. "I wanted to talk to you about today. You didn't seem as excited about the promotion as I expected. It's a generous offer," she said carefully. "I'm just not sure it's right for me." "Because you'd be away from the actual farming." When she nodded, he continued, "I understand that better than you might think. Every year I spend more time in boardrooms and less time on the land." "Then why do it?" Cole sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Responsibility, expectation, my father's legacy. Take your pick." "Are you happy, Cole?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He looked startled, as if no one had asked him that in a very long time. "I don't know," he admitted. "I'm successful by any measure. The business is thriving. But happy?" He shook his head slightly. "I'm not sure. I remember what that feels like." The honesty of his answer created a moment of connection between them, deeper than anything they'd shared before. "Will taking this promotion make you happy, Savannah?" "No," she said simply. "But turning it down feels ungrateful after everything you've done for me." Cole moved closer, his voice softening. "I didn't offer you this job, either job, out of charity. You earned it. And if the executive position isn't what you want, we'll figure something else out." There was something in his eyes, something beyond professional concern, that made Savannah's heart race. Before she could respond, his phone rang. Again. Cole grimaced as he checked it. "It's the Tokyo investors. Again. I need to take this." Savannah nodded, trying to hide her disappointment as he stepped outside to take the call. It was becoming a pattern, moments of connection interrupted by the demands of Cole's world. When he returned, his expression had changed, becoming more guarded. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." "Cole," she said as he reached the door. "Thank you for understanding about the promotion." He nodded. "We'll talk more tomorrow." But they didn't get the chance. The next morning, Savannah arrived at the office to find Diane looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Maddox had to fly to New York for an emergency board meeting," she explained. "He'll be gone for at least a week." "Did he leave any message for me?" Savannah asked, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "Just that you should continue with the dairy project as planned," Diane replied, not quite meeting her eyes. Something wasn't right. Savannah could feel it, but she focused on her work, pushing ahead with the dairy facility. The days passed slowly without Cole, and she found herself missing not just their professional interaction, but the quieter moments, the shared coffee, the brief smiles, the understanding in his eyes when she spoke about farming. A week stretched into 2. Cole called occasionally with questions about the project, but the conversations were brief and formal. When he finally returned, he seemed different, more distant, all business. "The facility looks good," he said during a walkthrough, maintaining a careful distance between them. "The board is pleased with the progress." "Cole, is everything okay?" Savannah finally asked. "You seem different since you got back." He hesitated, then gestured toward his office. "Let's talk privately." Once inside with the door closed, Cole's professional mask slipped slightly. "There have been some concerns raised." "About the dairy project?" "About us," he said quietly. "Walter Kingsley pulled me aside in New York. Apparently there have been rumors about our relationship. He reminded me that workplace relationships, especially between executives and their subordinates, are against company policy." Savannah felt her cheeks flush. "There isn't a relationship to be concerned about." "I know that," Cole said quickly, "but perception matters in business. Walter suggested that your promotion might be seen as favoritism." The implication was clear. People thought she was sleeping her way to the top. The unfairness of it stung. So what now? Am I fired? Of course not. Cole looked horrified at the suggestion. You're too valuable to the project. I just think we need to maintain more professional boundaries. More professional than what? We haven't done anything wrong. Cole ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I know, but the board... The board, Savannah repeated, a bitter edge to her voice. Always the board, or the investors, or some emergency? When do you make your own decisions, Cole? His expression hardened. That's not fair. Running Silver Oak means balancing a lot of responsibilities. You're right, she said, stepping back. It's not my place to question how you run your business. If you'll excuse me, I have work to do. As she walked out, Savannah felt something crack inside her. She'd been foolish to think anything could happen between them. Their worlds were too different, the obstacles too great. For the next few weeks, they circled each other cautiously. Professionally, nothing changed. Cole still valued her input, and Savannah still gave the project her all. But the warmth between them had cooled, replaced by a polite distance that felt worse than any argument. One evening, while checking on a pregnant heifer in the new barn, Savannah was surprised to find Richard Hartwell, the banker, touring the facility with one of the board members. They hadn't noticed her in the stall around the corner. Cole's gone soft, Richard was saying. First hiring that country girl, now this whole dairy project. It's not what his father would have wanted. The numbers look good, the board member replied. Walter says the projections are solid. Numbers can be manipulated, Richard said dismissively. Look, the eastern expansion we talked about, the one with the resort development, that's where the real money is. But Cole's dragging his feet because it would mean selling off 3 family farms. He's letting sentimentality cloud his judgment. Maybe he's right to be cautious. Those families have farmed that land for generations, Richard snorted. Since when does that matter in business? James Maddox wouldn't have hesitated. He understood that you have to be ruthless to succeed. He lowered his voice. Between us, I think Cole's little farm girl has more influence than she should. He looks at her like a lovesick teenager. Well, nothing can happen there. Walter made that very clear to Cole in New York. Good. The last thing Silver Oak needs is Cole throwing away everything for some dairymaid. Savannah stayed frozen in place until they left, her heart pounding. So that was why Cole had become so distant. He'd been warned off any relationship with her. And now she learned about an expansion plan that would destroy family farms? Farms, just like the one she'd lost. The next morning, she marched into Cole's office without knocking. We need to talk. Cole looked up in surprise. What's wrong? Is it true you're planning to buy out family farms for some resort development? His expression tightened. Where did you hear that? Is it true? She pressed. It's a proposal the board is considering, he admitted. The Eastern Expansion Project. It would increase our land holdings by 30% and include a luxury resort on the lake property. And the families who farmed that land for generations. What happens to them? Cole sighed. They'd be compensated fairly. It's business, Savannah. It's people's lives, she countered. Their homes, their legacies. Just like my family's farm was before the bank took it. This is different, is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like what happened to me. Savannah shook her head, disappointment washing over her. I thought you were different. That underneath all this, she gestured around his office, you still understood what the land really means. It's complicated, Cole said, standing up. There are factors you don't understand. I understand plenty. I understand that when it comes down to it, profit matters more than people, even to you. The accusation hung between them, sharp and painful. That's not fair, Cole said quietly. I've fought against this proposal for months, but I don't have the final say. The board, always the board, Savannah cut in. When do you stand up for what you believe in, Cole? When do you become the man I thought you were? The raw emotion in her voice silenced him. They stared at each other across the desk, the unspoken feelings between them impossible to ignore despite everything. I should go, Savannah finally said. I can't be part of this. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't work here anymore. Not if Silver Oak is going to become the kind of operation that destroys family farms. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket and placed it on his desk. My resignation. Cole looked as though she'd slapped him. Savannah, don't do this. We can talk about it, find a compromise. Some things don't have a compromise, Cole. This is about what's right. As she turned to leave, Cole moved around the desk and caught her arm. Please, don't go. The touch sent electricity through her, and when their eyes met, all the feelings they'd been denying crashed to the surface. Give me a chance to fix this, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Not just the project, everything. For a heartbeat, Savannah wavered. She could see the struggle in Cole's eyes, the man fighting against the businessman. I can't watch you become something you'll regret, she said softly, and I can't stay and pretend I don't care about you more than I should. Cole's grip loosened in surprise at her admission. Savannah, she stepped back, fighting tears. Goodbye, Cole. That evening, Savannah packed her few belongings into the same suitcase she'd arrived with. The dairy facility was almost complete. They could finish it without her. She'd already arranged for a bus ticket back to her hometown, where she'd figure out next steps. As she walked out to her old pickup truck, the night air cool against her tear-stained cheeks, a voice called out to her, "Running away again, huh?" Savannah turned to find Rebecca Maddox leaning against a shiny red convertible. "I'm not running away," Savannah replied. "I'm standing up for what I believe in." Rebecca studied her for a moment, then nodded. "You know, my brother has been miserable since you came to that dinner. Not because of you, because of himself. He sees something in you that he's lost. It doesn't matter now, doesn't it?" Rebecca pushed off from her car and approached. "I haven't seen Cole care about anything the way he cares about you since our mother died. You make him remember who he really is. He's made his choice," Savannah said, throwing her suitcase into the truck bed. "Silver Oak, the board, the Eastern, expansion, that's his world. Is it? Because he called me an hour ago asking for my help. First time in years." Rebecca handed Savannah a folded piece of paper. "Before you go, you might want to visit this place. It's not far." Savannah looked down at the paper, seeing an address written in Cole's neat handwriting. "What is this?" "Something my brother should have shown you himself." Rebecca smiled enigmatically. "Trust me, it's worth the detour." Against her better judgment, Savannah followed the directions to a small farmhouse on the outskirts of Silver Oak property. The building was old but recently renovated, with a wraparound porch and a barn visible in the moonlight. Wildflowers grew along the fence line, their scent sweet in the night air. As she pulled up, the porch light came on, and Cole stepped outside. He looked different, tired, his usually perfect appearance rumpled, his eyes reflecting the same turmoil she felt. "You came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Rebecca can be persuasive," Savannah replied, staying by her truck. "What is this place?" "It was the original Maddox homestead," Cole explained, coming down the steps toward her, "where my great-grandfather started with his 100 acres. It's been empty for decades, but I've been restoring it. For me, a place away from everything. It's beautiful," she admitted, looking around at the moonlit property. "Savannah, I called an emergency board meeting after you left. I told them the Eastern expansion was off the table. No resort, no buying out family farms. If they didn't like it, they could find a new CEO." She stared at him in shock. "You did that? What did they say?" "They weren't happy," he said with a half smile. "But it turns out Silver Oak needs me more than I need them. And I need..." He faltered, then continued. "I need to be someone I can respect when I look in the mirror. Someone worthy of you." Savannah's heart hammered in her chest. "Cole, I made a mistake," he continued, stepping closer. "I let other people define what success should look like, what I should want, but none of it matters if it means losing sight of what's important." He gently took her hands in his. "You asked me if I was happy. The answer is no, not until you. You brought something back to Silver Oak that had been missing for a long time. You brought it back to me." Tears pricked at Savannah's eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you, Savannah Lane. I love your straightforward honesty, your connection to the land, the way you see through all the trappings to what really matters. And if you'll give me another chance, I want to build something real with you. Not just the dairy division, a life." Savannah looked into his eyes, seeing the truth there. Gone was the cool businessman, replaced by the man she'd glimpsed in quiet moments. The one who tended roses and remembered his first cow's name and laughed like he meant it. What about the board, the company policy? I'm making some changes there too, Cole said with a smile. Starting with who makes the rules at Silver Oak. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Stay, Savannah, not as my employee, as my partner, in everything. Under the vast Iowa sky, surrounded by the land they both loved, Savannah made her choice. As their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home, she knew that sometimes the greatest harvests come after the hardest seasons, and as Cole held her close, whispering promises against her hair, Savannah realized that maybe fairy tales could happen after all, not the kind with glass slippers and castles, but the kind built on hard work, honest hearts, and the courage to choose love over everything else. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the Maddox homestead as Savannah woke to the sound of birds chirping outside the window. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. The comfortable bed, the warm quilt, the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back. After their emotional reunion, Cole had insisted she stay at the homestead rather than drive back to staff housing. Just to talk, he'd promised with a smile that made her heart race. They'd spent hours on the porch swing sharing their hopes and fears, making plans for the future, and stealing kisses that grew increasingly difficult to end. Now, as she made her way downstairs, Savannah found Cole in the kitchen, attempting to make breakfast. His usually perfect hair was tousled, his expression one of fierce concentration as he flipped pancakes with varying degrees of success. "Morning," she said, unable to keep the smile from her voice. Cole turned, his face lighting up at the sight of her. "Hey there. I was going to surprise you with breakfast in bed, but..." He gestured ruefully at the misshapen pancakes. "It's the thought that counts," Savannah laughed, moving to stand beside him. "Though maybe let me take over before you burn down this beautiful house." As they ate breakfast on the porch, watching the sun climb higher over Silver Oak's rolling fields, Savannah felt a contentment she hadn't experienced in years, but questions still lingered in her mind. "What happens now?" she asked, setting down her coffee mug. "With us, with Silver Oak, with everything." Cole reached across the table to take her hand. "First, I'd like you to withdraw that resignation. The dairy division needs you, I need you, but not as an employee." "Then as what?" "As my partner, in business and..." He hesitated, his eyes meeting. Hers in life, if that's what you want. Savannah's heart swelled. "It is, but it won't be easy. People will talk." "Let them talk," Cole said with a dismissive wave. "I've spent too long worrying about what others think. The board might grumble, but they'll come around when they see what we can accomplish together." Later that morning, they drove back to the main facility, arriving just as the staff was gathering for the weekly meeting. Whispers spread as they walked in together, Savannah's hand tucked securely in Cole's. "I have a few announcements," Cole said, addressing the room, with a confidence Savannah had never seen before. "First, the Eastern Expansion project has been cancelled. Instead, we'll be focusing on sustainable growth and supporting local family farms through partnership programs." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. Second, Miss Lane will be staying with Silver Oak, but in a new role. She'll be co-directing all operations as my partner. He looked at Savannah with undisguised affection, in every sense of the word. The news spread quickly. By afternoon, Diane had fielded calls from 3 board members and Richard Hartwell, all demanding explanations. Cole handled each one with a newfound resilience, making it clear that his decisions were final, both professionally and personally. Walter wasn't happy, Cole told Savannah after a particularly tense call. "He thinks I'm throwing away everything my father built." "And what do you think?" she asked. "I think I'm building something better," Cole replied, his eyes steady on hers. "Something that honors the land and the people who work it, not just the bottom line." Over the following weeks, Cole and Savannah worked side by side, reshaping Silver Oak's future. The dairy division became the company's flagship project, combining traditional farming practices with innovative technology. Instead of displacing family farms, they created partnerships, offering equipment sharing, processing facilities, and distribution networks that helped small operations thrive. Not everyone supported the changes. Richard Hartwell withdrew his bank's financial backing, forcing Cole to seek alternative funding. 2 board members resigned in protest, but for every obstacle, they found a solution together. One evening, while reviewing contracts in Cole's office, Savannah received an unexpected visitor, Rebecca Maddox. "So the rumors are true," Rebecca said, eyeing the stack of papers on the desk and the easy familiarity between them. "My brother has finally found someone who can match his stubborn streak." "Glad you approve," Cole replied dryly, but with a genuine smile for his sister. Rebecca perched on the edge of the desk. "Actually, I came to tell you I've been thinking about your offer, about coming back to work at Silver Oak." Cole's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Really? Last time we discussed it, you said, and I quote, 'I'd rather eat glass.'" "That was before," Rebecca said, glancing meaningfully at Savannah. "Before Silver Oak started becoming a place I could be proud of again. Like your mother would have." "The wanted," Savannah said quietly. Rebecca nodded. "Exactly. Mom always believed the land was meant to sustain families, not just generate profits. Dad never understood that." "So you'll help us?" Cole asked, hope evident in his voice. "On one condition," Rebecca said, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I get to be maid of honor at the wedding, whenever that might be." Cole laughed, glancing at Savannah with such love that it took her breath away. "Deal." As summer gave way to fall, Silver Oak bloomed with new life and purpose. The dairy facility held its grand opening, drawing visitors from across the state. Farms that had once faced foreclosure now partnered with them, creating a network of sustainable agriculture that was becoming a model for the industry. Cole and Savannah split their time between the main office and the restored homestead, which had become their shared haven. On weekends, they worked in the garden, rode horses across the property, or simply sat on the porch swing planning their future together. One crisp October evening, Cole suggested they visit his mother's rose garden. As they walked among the blooms now fading with the season, Savannah noticed he seemed unusually nervous. "Everything okay?" she asked. "You've been checking your phone all day, just waiting for an important call," he said vaguely. "It's about a surprise." Before she could question him further, his phone buzzed. Cole checked the message, a wide smile breaking across his face. "It's here," he said excitedly. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led her to a shed at the edge of the garden, a place Savannah had never entered before. Inside, the small space was filled with gardening tools, old photographs, and boxes of memorabilia. "This was my mother's private space," Cole explained, moving toward a dusty desk in the corner. "After she died, I couldn't bear to clear it out." He pulled open a drawer, removing a faded blueprint that had yellowed with age. As he unfolded it on the desk, Savannah gasped. There, in the corner, was her family's name, Lane Farm, written in elegant script. "I don't understand," she said, scanning the document. It appeared to be an original survey map of the region, dating back nearly a century. "I didn't either at first," Cole replied. "I found this a few weeks ago when I was looking for some of my mother's old gardening notes. It shows that your family's farm and ours were originally part of the same land grant, so our families knew each other. More than that." Cole pulled out an old photograph showing a young couple standing in front of a farmhouse, the very same one they now called home. "The woman on the left was my great-grandmother Elizabeth. The man beside her, his name was William Lane." Savannah's eyes widened. "Lane? As in your great-grandfather," Cole confirmed. "According to the letters I found, William and Elizabeth were childhood sweethearts. When hard times hit, William's family had to sell their portion of the land to Elizabeth's family. They went their separate ways, each marrying someone else, but they never forgot each other." Savannah traced the faces in the photograph with a trembling finger. "All these years our families were connected and we never knew." "There's more," Cole said softly. "The reason I've been checking my phone all day is that I've been waiting for confirmation on something." He took her hands in his expression serious but full of joy. "Savannah, your family farm went up for auction last week. I placed a bid. The call I just got was from the bank. We got it." Tears sprang to Savannah's eyes. "You bought my family's farm." "Why?" "Because it belongs to you. To us. Cole squeezed her hands gently. I thought we could restore it together, make it part of Silver Oak, but keep the Lane name. Your brother could work there when he's ready, after rehab. A fresh start for all of us. Overwhelmed with emotion, Savannah threw her arms around him. Cole Maddox, you are the most incredible man I've ever known. He held her close, his voice rough with feeling. I love you, Savannah. You brought meaning back to this land and to my life. Marrying you would make me the happiest man alive. She pulled back slightly, her eyes wide. Is that a proposal? Cole laughed, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. I had this whole speech planned, but yes, that's exactly what it is. He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. Will you marry me, Savannah Lane? Not because our families were once connected, but because I never want to be disconnected from you again? Under the fading light in a garden shed filled with history, Savannah gave her answer with tears and laughter, and a kiss that promised forever. 3 months later, as winter blanketed Silver Oak in pristine white, they gathered with friends, family, and the entire ranch staff to celebrate their wedding. The ceremony was held in the old barn at the homestead, transformed with twinkling lights and winter greenery into a rustic wonderland. Rebecca stood proudly as maid of honor, while Savannah's brother, newly sober and working on the restored Lane Farm, served as best man. Board members mingled with farmhands, corporate investors chatted with local farmers, and for one perfect day, all the different worlds that had once seemed so far apart came together in harmony. After the ceremony, Cole led Savannah outside for a moment of privacy before the reception began in earnest. Snow fell gently around them as they stood on the porch of the house that had belonged to both their families. Happy? Cole asked, wrapping his arms around his new wife. Savannah looked up at him, her heart full. More than I ever thought possible. From inside came the sounds of laughter and music, a celebration of not just their love, but the new vision for Silver Oak they'd created together, one that honored the past while building toward the future. You know, Cole said thoughtfully, my mother used to say that the richest harvest comes from seeds planted with love. Savannah smiled, thinking of all they'd been through to reach this moment. Her failed farm, his corporate struggles, the unlikely path that had brought them together. She was right, Savannah said, reaching up to touch his face, and we're just getting started. As they stood there in the gently falling snow, the billion-dollar farmer and the woman who taught him what truly mattered, they knew that their greatest adventure was still to come. Together, they would nurture not just the land but the legacy of two families finally reunited, a legacy of hard work, honest hearts, and love that, like the most resilient crops, could weather any season. At Silver Oak Ranch, a new story was just beginning to bloom, one planted in rich soil, tended with care and harvested with gratitude. And for Cole and Savannah Maddox, it was the sweetest harvest of all.